My name's Ian Gray. Welcome to the show. This show is all about how you can launch your podcast through the power of Ecamm Live. And today, this is episode 7, and it's all about how to produce your podcast for your live shows. I'm going to be showing my full workflow for my live show and how I turn that into a podcast and blog posts. And this is quite exciting because we're getting towards the end of it. Awesome. Right. Well, this is the live part of the show before we get on to the main part. But if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments. Put a capital Q followed by a colon. I think that's the right word for the punctuation there. I mean, that's what we say in the UK. So put Q colon and then the question, and then I'll do my best to answer that question. We're going to break this up into 3 sections today, going through the whole stages from the beginning to the end. So I think that's it. I think it's time to get on the show because I've got so much to share with you today. Just so that we get ready for the replay part and for the main section, I'm just going to go back to the image and then I'll introduce the shows. All right, I'll see you in a sec. Hello, my name's Ian Gray, and in this episode of the Podcaster Hour, I'm talking about how to produce your podcast from your live shows, a complete overview and how you can use Ecamm Live with that. So without further ado, let's get on with it.
Welcome to the Podcaster Hour from Ecamm, helping entrepreneurs, business owners, and live streamers launch a podcast with success using the power of Ecamm Live. Grow your audience and expand your reach, and learn how to plan, promote, produce, and repurpose your live show and podcast. Here's your host, Ian Anderson Gray.
Hello and welcome to the Podcaster Hour. This is episode 7. I can't believe episode 7. This is the show that helps you launch your podcast through the power of Ecamm Live. We go live every single Monday at 4 p.m. in the UK. That's 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. And in today's show, this is episode 7, we're going to be talking about how to produce your podcast for your live shows using Ecamm Live, a full workflow. Just to let you know, this show is powered by Ecamm Live. It is my favorite live video tool for Mac. It helps me produce my podcast so easily. And I'm going to be talking about that in today's show. The way you can separate, you can record on separate tracks your audio, your sound effects, your videos, and your guests all on different tracks. And that is amazing. Aaron was talking just before I started, was talking about using the tool Auphonic. And this is a tool that processes your audio, makes it sound really, really cool. I'm not going to be using that in today's show, but there are loads and loads of techniques you can use. You can use Auphonic. There's also Alitu, which I mentioned a few weeks ago. I had Colin Gray, who's the founder of Alitu, on the show, talking about that. In today's show, I'm going to be showing you how to use Adobe Audition, but yeah, we could use lots of different tools there. Let's talk about the first stage. So the first thing that you need to think about is planning your process. I would not be without my process. It helps me at all the different stages because I don't know about you, there are so many moving parts in producing a live show, but when you add podcasting to the mix, it's even more. You've got to think about the processing, the planning, all those kind of things. And I've talked about this before, but I have what I call the 5 Ps formula, which is all the stages that you need to think about for your live shows. So that is the first P is planning. The second is pre-promotion. The third is the production of your live show. Then it's the post-promotion. And then finally, it's your repurposing. But when you add podcasting to the mix, it's even more stuff that you need to think about. So I'm going to share with you some of my process. I use Asana as my project management tool. You don't have to use that. You could just use an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheet or whatever you like. There are loads of cool tools out there, but that's what I do. Then if you've got a guest on your show, I think you need to have a really good booking system for your guest. This is whether you have it's for a podcast or a live show, really important. Then have a checklist for your guest, because if people are used to coming on a podcast, they might not be used to coming on a live show. And your show is going to be both a podcast and a live show. And I think you need to give them some thoughts and tools on how to present themselves and on what to do. And for example, should they use a computer? Should they use a particular microphone? That kind of thing. Then creating a planning doc and a run of show, and then scheduling your broadcast. So that's the bit that's what we're going to be talking about in this section. So let's talk about that first one, which is about that planning process, which I think is so important. And if you go back to one of my previous episodes right at the start, I was talking about how to create a planning document for your whole show. I'm not going to be talking about that today, but I'm going to be sharing with you my process, how I created my plan using, I use Asana, but you don't have to use that. So let me just open up Google Chrome. Hopefully you can see that okay. So I've got 2 templates in my Asana. I've got my guest show template and I've also got my solo show, because there are different stages. If I'm doing a solo show, I don't need to obviously send out links to my guests and things like that. So they're very, very similar, but this is my template in Asana. This is what I do. So let's just scroll to the top here. And I have a team, but you don't have to have a team for this. So I've got, I've grown my business over the years. I started just with myself. But if you do have an assistant, if you have other people that can help you, like a podcast editor as well, you can pop them into Asana and give them different tasks, which is really, really good. So I've got some thoughts there on how I want to improve this in the future, things like promoting my Twitter lists and timing and things like that. But I've broken this up into different sections. I've got my planning section, my pre-promotion, production. I've got post-promotion. So the production is actually going live and recording the podcast. The post-promotion side of things, that should probably say post-promotion and podcast production, because there's elements of that I need to talk about. Then we've got repurposing, which I'm going to be talking a bit more about next week. Asana works really, really well for me, but I can see that DocRock says I just started Asana for LGL. It's great. We've got LBC Branding, who uses Trello. Trello is also a really good tool. It kind of depends, I think, on how your brain works. The main reason why I use Asana is because my assistant forced me to, but I'm actually really happy about that. Okay, so that's what I've done. That's what I've done here. So the first thing that I do is I send a link to my guests. So let's just go through those initial stages. Create your process. It's going to be different to mine. Mine's actually quite complicated and lengthy, and I've built that up over time. But the first thing that you'll want to do is get your guest to book a time with you. Now, I use Calendly for that. I know quite a few people use Calendly. I love Calendly. It's a really quick and easy way. Here's my Calendly here. I've created one for the Confident Live Marketing Show. You can book that time with me. So if you're a guest, for example, let's say you could want to book there at 3:45 p.m. You can confirm that. So here I've got, you enter your name in there, your email. I've asked them to put their headshot image in there, just a link in there, a short bio. To keep it easy for me, I want them to enter it under 280 characters, because I want to be able to just read that out on air, and I want it to be nice, short and sweet, and in third person. So I can help promote them, ask for their website, their Twitter username, Instagram, YouTube, if they've got them, LinkedIn, that kind of stuff. We've probably talked about what we're going to talk about on the show, but sometimes I like to ask them if they've got any thoughts and ideas, kind of flesh this out. And I've had some guests on my show that have actually almost given me mini blog posts here, which has been amazing in helping me structure what we're going to be talking about on the show. I ask a question, a silly question. I quite like asking silly questions. So I ask, what's your favorite style of music? That's primarily because I actually sing a little song for my guests, just the way I am. I did train as a singer. Because I've got the pro version of Calendly, there's also the ability to then send them a text reminder there. So I hope that you can all see that on the screen there. That's how I use Calendly. It's really, really good. Melissa asks, what type of form are you using? So this is calendly.com. And then I create, there's the ability to create a custom form in there just to add some extra fields. So I've added fields like what is their Twitter handle and their Instagram thing. And then I just put all of those into a spreadsheet on Google. So let me see if I can find that for you. Calendly is great. The reason I prefer Calendly is because it links with my calendar, and I can say I only want you to book these times. So I've only got Tuesdays and Thursdays at these specific times, and sometimes I've already got a guest booked. So it just makes it easier for me. But if you want to use Google Forms, really, really good way of doing that. So once I've done that, this is my form for this show. So hopefully you can see that okay. I've got some guests here, so you can see the first 2 were solo. Then I had Colin Gray on. Then a couple of solos, Mike Russell last week, a couple of solos. I've got the date. I actually haven't in this show, because it's not so relevant, put in their email, headshot, bio, and things like that. But on my Confident Line Marketing Show, I make sure that I have got their headshots, I've got their bio in there, and I've got it all listed there, just so it makes everything so much easier for the future. So definitely, I would use Google Sheets. Works really, really well, I think. And DocRock says Calendly is the bomb, very helpful. But there are some free tools out there as well. You don't have to use Calendly, not forcing you, like my assistant forced me to use Asana, which I'm really happy with. Okay, so where are we with things? We've done process planning, booking your guests. Oh yes, the next thing is send them a guest checklist. You'll want to create your own for this. I'll show you what I've come up with here. Hopefully you can see this okay. So this is my checklist here. I make it really super simple at the start. I say we will be broadcasting the interview live with video, and part of this will be used for an audio podcast recording. I think you need to spell it out because some people won't know. Some guests might get mixed up. Is this a podcast? Is this a live show? And you need to spell it out that it's both. And then I link to my podcast page so it shows all the videos and podcasts from previous things. And then I say, what should you have? These are the must-haves for your guests. So first of all, a computer. Yes, technically with interview mode, you can come in using a phone or a tablet, but it's just a much better experience, I think, if they can use to use a computer. The quality is significantly better. I recommend that they use Google Chrome or Firefox. I know Safari works. I know other ones do, but I like to keep things simple. Make sure they've got a webcam, ideally an external mic, that they use headphones. Okay, I want to know from you watching live, do you like to wear headphones or earbuds or something like that? And do you want your guests to do that? For me, I want my guests to wear earbuds or something, because Ecamm Live has got amazing echo cancellation and things like that. But even still, I think potentially be echoes and beeps and things like that coming in the background. And it just makes it so much easier for you if your guests is wearing headphones or earbuds or something like that. Please, 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 please do that. A live streaming master says it's a must, no options. I assume you're talking about the headphone thing. I'd love to hear from you because I feel so passionately about this, and it's just like, But I do get it. You know, some people don't like wearing headphones or earbuds because, you know, it might messes up the hair and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, Doc Rock agrees with me. I knew you would, Doc. I'm an old radio guy. You always wear headphones, earbuds. And Carlos agrees, not an option, headphones. I'm going to guess that actually most people watching today will agree with me. But not everyone does. Then the next thing I always recommend, get them to do a speed test. Most of them don't do this, but just check your speed, make sure it's all okay. Check how you look, all that kind of stuff. And then I have loads of other stuff here, super SWOT stuff that goes into more detail. I won't go through all of this stuff, but basically this is a little bit more about, you know, other stuff that they can do like lighting and webcams and noise and all this kind of stuff, just to help them a bit more about that. And then on the final page, a little bit more about the show, what they can expect and the audience and all that kind of stuff. I'm kind of guessing that most of my guests on my show aren't going to read that far, but I'm giving them the option. If they want to get special points from me, then they'll read that far and they'll make it really good for me. I'm just laughing at the comments here. Yeah, why anyone won't is beyond me. Stuff your hair. That's the polite way of saying that. Headphones are a must, LBC Branding says. And Social Builder says, I got headphones on. Awesome. They don't have to be big ones like these, by the way, but I do like these. These are nice. These are technically noise cancellation headphones. These are the Bose, what they call Quiet Comfort 35s, I think they are. But I haven't got the noise cancellation on because that's, yeah, you can't hear anything if you do that. Okay, cool. So that's the next thing that you do. You send them a checklist. Then it's time to start planning your show for this particular episode. And I talked about this the week before. I'm not going to go through this all again about creating the best run of show for your shows. But I will share with you today's, so let me just find it in my infinite number of tabs that I've got. Okay, go back to here. So this is my run of show for today's show. I've got this as a Google Doc. First of all, this is the blurb or the description for our social media posts here. So I've written that out here. And then I take some of that description and then plant that into my run of show. So I've got the pre-show slot. If you're watching the replay, you won't be seeing this. This is just the live element of my show that I like to do. So I like to structure my show in a way that has a bit of a live element, but that's not quite so helpful if you're watching the replay. It's a bit more informal. Then I have the hook and the playing the intro video, some housekeeping stuff, and then I split the show into sections. So at the moment we're in section 1. I'm going through my different sections that I want to talk about, my different points. Then a reminder, live questions. Then I go into the next point and break it up like that, and then end with when I'm next going to go live, and then my tagline at the end. So once you've got your guest in, you can then start to plan your show, and I definitely recommend doing that using using a Google Doc. I also use a teleprompter, so I put my run of show there. So I've got my little remote control thing here, and it means that I know exactly what I'm talking about. I also print it out as well. So I always recommend, just in case my teleprompter decides to die, I've actually been really bad and it's still in the printer over there. But if that was to happen, I could go over and get it. So that's the next thing. Okay, then we're on to scheduling, or if you're from the UK, scheduling your live show. And so you can do this within Ecom Live really easily, or if you're using Restream, you can create it within Restream, and then that will then appear in Ecom Live, whatever you're doing. But that's what you need to do there. It works really, really well. You schedule your live show, and if it's on Facebook, you can schedule it up to a week in advance. For YouTube, it's either a year or it's a long time in the future. So, but certainly I would recommend doing it a week in advance, and then that helps you then start to promote your live shows as well. And then obviously you would then want to let your guest know that you have scheduled it, give them the link and ask them to promote it, make it as easy for them as possible. Really, really important stuff. Well, if you've just joined us, this is the Podcaster Hour from Ecamm. And in today's show, it's all about how to produce your podcast from your live shows using Ecom Live. I'm giving a full workflow of how I do it. And now I just want to check the comments, see if we've got any questions here. We were talking about the necessity of using headphones before, and I think that is really, really important. We've got Aaron who says, if you don't like big headphones like these and prefer earbuds through a mixture, they make 1/4-inch adapters. Yeah, really good point. So you don't have to wear big ones. I do actually have some smaller ones down on the floor. They shouldn't be on the floor, should they? But anyway, some really kind of nice little tiny ones, and they work well. Yeah, Aaron says mixer, not mixer. Yeah, no, I knew what you meant. And Dawn says, do you share your templates? Well, all of these, that's a great question. So all of these shows are going to be repurposed into blog posts. Just taking, I don't know how in advance we're doing them. Maybe this will be ready in about 2 or 3 weeks. I've also got later this month, I've got my Launch Your Live course, which is all about how to launch your live show, but also turning it into a podcast. And I'm going to be sharing all my detailed templates in that course. So if you're really interested in the full-blown templates, then join that course. That's later this month. But in that blog post that Katie from Ecamm is creating, we'll give you lots and lots of information there. So no worries about that. LBC Branding just got my teleprompter recently. Game changer. I totally agree. I mean, I have to say, I wasn't so sure about getting a teleprompter, but when you have it, having your show notes in front of you makes such a difference. It really, really does. Don't put a script up there, but just put bullet points. Really makes a massive, massive difference. And Drew Allen says, where can we find the blog post? Just on the Ecam website. Probably the easiest place to go to is iag.me/Ecam Live. That takes you to the Ecam website, and then just click on blog and you'll see it all there. You'll see one of the recent Podcaster Hour blog posts on there. So Doc Rock says, teleprompter is tempting me now. I'm with IAG. Was worried about being robotic, but I think it kind of depends on the show that you do. For this type of show where I'm a lot more structured, and I think you need to be fairly structured for a podcast. I think having a run of show and having a template in front of you, a run of show on a teleprompter makes a lot of sense. It's really helped me. But hopefully you don't think I'm sounding robotic. I mean, I'm not. I've got reminders in front of me of what I'm going to talk about. So at the moment, it says live questions. It's a reminder that I need to look at the questions in front of me and stuff like that. Now, this is a great question. Thank you, Mel, for this. I noticed you are answering questions here. When you repurpose for podcasts, do you edit these out? So it depends. So this show that I'm doing at the moment, we're not turning this into a podcast. Maybe we should have done, but, this is something to think about for the future. But for my live show, I probably wouldn't answer so many questions. I maybe would do 2 or 3 in each section, but I absolutely do keep them in, as long as I make those relevant for my replay viewers and for the podcast listeners. So I think that's why it's important to structure it. So the way I've structured today's show is I've got section 1 where I'm sharing about how you plan your show. Then I'm on questions at the moment. Then I'm going to share something else. Then it's questions, share something else, questions. And if you structure it well like that, it works really, really well. But if it was all over the place and you go on to loads of tangents. That's not going to work quite so well for podcast, in my opinion. I hope that helps, Mel, but great question. Quinn Zone Studio says, what teleprompter are you using? I think I've seen some for around £100. Mine cost about £100, so about $100-ish. It's an iPad teleprompter. Now, I know it's not the most perfect solution, but I happen to have an old iPad version 3, an iPad 3rd generation around, and so I just put it on there. It basically just reflects in front of my camera, works really well. It's not perfect, but for £100, $100, it's more than perfect for what I need. So just go on Amazon or other stores and look for an iPad teleprompter. There are much more expensive ones out there. And if you've got the budget for that, then by all means go for that. But that's what I do. Let's go on to the next topic, the next bit. So we've gone through all of that. So the next page, and by the way, this is really cool. This is I love this part of Ecamm, is that you can just put a PDF up here. So I've got a PDF with 3 pages. This is page 2. I created this in Canva, or you could produce this in Easel. Now we're onto the promotion and then the production side of things. Loads of things that you can do here. First of all, what you've scheduled your live event, so you could create, for example, a Facebook event. And the great thing about that is you can then invite your fans and your friends to watch your live show. That works really, really well. There are Facebook Messenger bots. You could then schedule in advance using a social media management tool. Whatever that is, I happen to use Agorapulse. I love Agorapulse. Big shout out to them. But make sure that you're scheduling to let people know that you're going to be going live. You can also set that up afterwards. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit for the podcast as well. I use Add Event. Add Event is a great way for your audience to be able to subscribe to a calendar, so they'll know when your live shows are coming out and when your podcasts are coming out. And don't forget your email list as well. So send emails out. There's a great tool called SendTrick, SendTric.com, which allows you to embed countdown timers in your emails, and that's great for live. So that's not so much to do with podcasting, but if you obviously want to create a bit of a buzz for your live shows, because it allows you to grow your community as well and to have more of a community feel to that. Cool. So LBC Branding says they use SmarterQ. Great tool. I like SmarterQ. Was it last year? Yeah, last year I went whale watching with the CEO of SmarterQ. He's a great guy. And David Smith says, cannot say enough good about Ecamm Live. I'm glad you said good. It has allowed us to focus on content instead of tech. Oh my goodness. So true there. So that's the promotion, the pre-promotion side of things. Now it's time to set up Ecamm Live. Now, I'm not going to go into everything that you need to do to set up Ecamm Live. There are plenty of tutorials that will help you with that. But, you need to be able to create all your different scenes for your show. So if you've got a guest, you'll want to have a scene with just you on it. If you have a guest, so I haven't got a guest on, but if I change my scene, if I had a guest on, I would be able to bring them in there on the right. I've also got guest screen there if they were sharing their screen. I've got my screen share there. I've got loads of different ones there as well, and also guest image. That was when Mike Russell was on the show. So you set up all of those ahead of time, but the important thing is that for podcasting, you set up the ISO audio tracks. So let me just go into live demo mode. Okay, so hopefully you can see this okay. And then if you do Command and comma, or if you just click on the cog there, whatever, it doesn't really matter, you go into the Ecamm preferences. So for audio, there's a number of things you might want to think about. If you click on the audio section here at the top, right at the bottom, now I've got this grayed out because I'm currently going live. I can't change these settings when I'm live. This allows me to check record isolated audio tracks. And if you're wanting to do this as a podcast, then I think you want to separate your track from your guest track and do it that way. So you're separated out, and it also will separate things like sound effects. So if I have like a cheering sound like this, then this is going to be recorded on a separate track. So if I decide later on, I don't want that cheering sound, it sounds a bit too cheesy, I can then just easily remove that. So that's really important. Loads of other things you can think about doing as well. For example, you can switch on high quality audio mode, which I do. It just records at a higher audio bit rate. You don't need that necessarily, but I just like to have the best quality as much as I can. There we go. Live demo mode off. So that's what you need to do. But you need to remember to do that before you start going live. So just check that you know where you're going live, that you're going live to either Facebook or wherever you're going. Test your audio and your video. Oh, yes. And of course, the other thing is, let me just go to live demo mode again, because this is something I think is quite cool. You can choose your recordings folder. So this is where Ecamm will save those recordings for later. I get that to save it within my Dropbox folder. If you use Google Drive or you're using iCloud, whatever. But I think it's good to have it in a folder where you can share it out later on. So I share this with my assistant and also with my podcast editor. I used to edit my podcasts myself. Now I get a podcast editing company to do that. So I would go there, your Ecamm live video recordings and audio recordings in a shareable folder for later. I think that makes a lot of sense to do it that way. So yeah, that's setting up Ecamm Live. Meet your guest early. So that's important. I would say meet them 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes early, do some testing, make sure that everything's going okay. And then it's time to go live. And I've shared this before, but this is just to go over the structure side of things. So what I like to do is I start with a countdown. I then have a little live element, a bit of an informal pre-show part of this. And that's just to interact with my live audience. This will not be part of the actual podcast. Then I'll play the show intro, which you will have seen at the beginning. And then at that point, it's the replay and podcast section. This is the bit that only the replay viewers and the podcast listeners will listen to or see. Then I'll end the show with my outro. And then you've got the choice. You either end it there or you could have an optional live element at the end that you wouldn't necessarily go into the podcast part of things. So you do the live show and then obviously you then press end broadcast and all of those tracks will be saved within your Ecamm Live recordings folder, which is awesome. A few other things you could think about doing. You could update the descriptions from where you've gone live just to make them more catering towards your replay audience. And another thing that's really, I think, important to do is to go back on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, if you're broadcasting to those places, and trim those videos. So you're cutting that beginning bit off. So you're only getting that replay part, the main section of your live show. Add to series on Facebook and YouTube as well, and playlists and all that kind of stuff. Works really, really well. Okay, so in the next section, I'm going to be talking about how to actually edit your podcast and some of the post-promotion side of things as well. But if you've just joined us, this is the Podcaster Hour from Ecamm, and I'm talking about how to produce your podcast for your live shows using the power of Ecamm Lives. Pilotsites.tv, how to upload to YouTube an edited version without losing the caveat. So yeah, you can, I mean, you've got the option if you want to just to edit it afterwards and then upload it. But I like to broadcast it to YouTube live and then I'll just edit it. I'll just trim it off the beginning. I mean, I'm just all for making it as quick and as simple as possible. So that's what I do. But you can absolutely just go live to, say, Facebook and then download it from, well, you don't need to download it because Ecamm will have recorded it. So you can then just edit it that way. Loads of tools. There's a great one called Descript.com where you can drag the video into Descript.com and then you can edit the video, edit the audio, you can cut bits out, you can edit words, you can remove filler words like and and things like that. Descript is a great tool. I'm not going to be talking about that in today's show, but Descript.com works really, really well. Okay, so let's get on with the next part. So the next bit is to talk about editing the audio for the podcast. And so for this, what I want to do is, I think I'll go into live demo mode actually. So what I've opened here is a Finder window. So these are all my Ecamm Live recordings. All of them are here. I've got number 1, main mic. So that's my main microphone. Number 2 is movie audio. Number 7, sound effects. And number 9, guest 1. This was last week's show when I had Mike Russell on the show. So I've got 4 separate audio tracks. And then I've got a video track for the whole thing. It works really, really well. So what I'd done earlier, so I prepared this earlier actually. Michael Kinney says, is your guest audio coming directly into Ecamm Live or are you passing through the Rodecaster Pro? I've only just got the Rodecaster Pro. I only got that last week. You don't need the Rodecaster Pro. It's a great piece of kit, don't get me wrong. But actually, you can just use Ecamm Live to do all this stuff because it will be on separate tracks. So in answer to your question, your guest audio will be recorded in a separate file from Ecamm. So you don't need any extra special kit. It's great if you've got it. I'm not knocking it, but that's that's the great thing about Ecom Live. It's so awesome. So I hope that helps, Michael. Okay, so let's do this. So this is Adobe Audition. Now this might look a little bit scary to you. And if it looks really scary, don't worry, it's not as scary as it looks. So a number of things. First of all, what you can do, you can learn how to do this yourself, whether it's using Audacity, which is a free tool, or whether you're using a tool like Adobe Audition. I wanted to learn how to use Adobe Audition, or you could use Ala2, a system like that. But all I've done here is I've dragged my audio. So do you remember that file, Mic 1? That is the top track there. Track number 2 is Mike Russell's audio. Track number 3 there, it says David, but actually that's not David. That is the video audio. And then that final one is sound effects. So I need to just change that. So I can then just go through this. You won't be able to hear this because I haven't got the audio routed through, but it doesn't matter. So what I can do now is I can, for example, I can just edit little bits out. So I know this little bit here, if I just play this. Yeah, so that bit is the video bit. Down here, I think this is probably, yeah, that sound there is the cheering sound. So I might not necessarily want that. So I can then just delete that from that. Now here, if we look at here, let's just look into this audio here. If I just click on 9, I can now have a look at this audio. And I can see Mike's audio is amazing, but I can see there's quite a few little bits here, little background noises here. So now you won't be able to hear those, but that's going to be annoying on the podcast. So what I can do, we can do some effects here. So if I go to effects, I go to amplitude and compression. What I can do here is it's a good idea to normalize things, but what we can do is we can go to the dynamics tab. First of all, what I'll do is I'm going to just select this little bit here, and then I'm going to go to amplitude statistics and then scan that selection. So what I want to do here is I want to find out the average amplitude, the average volume for this. And by the way, if this seems really complicated, you don't need to worry about this. What you can do is you can go and get this edited using another tool or get a podcast editor to do this. But I can see there that the average amplitude is about 29 decibels. Let's go to amplitude and compression. Let's go to dynamics. And then what I can do is I tend to go a little bit higher than this. So I've got the auto gate at -35. So I want that to be, I want to make sure that I'm going lower than the actual sound there. And what the auto gate does is it will remove any sounds that are under -35 decibels. So I've got that. I've got the compressor. I want the compressor there to just compress the sound so that the louds and the quiets, there's not so much of a distinction between those two. So I've got those at -35 and -30. That seems about right. Let's click apply. Oh, actually, before I do that, let's select it all, click apply. And then hopefully once I've done this, you'll then see that we'll have removed all of those little peaks that are for the background noise. So we're nearly ready with that. What this is going to do is it's going to remove all those little sounds. So let's just give it another few seconds. Okay, come on. Okay, so it's removed most of those, which is good. But it's still a few more there. So I might need to do a little bit more tweaking. That might just be, yeah. So I actually probably need to do a little bit more editing there. But that's just to give you an idea of how that works. So once you've edited it, you can then go to exporting the audio. Now, I'm not going to export all of this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to export the final section of this so I can show you how this works. I'm deleting all of those, deleting that first bit. I'm going to move that over here. And then I can go to multi-track, mix down, entire section. I'm going to just save that on the desktop like that. And then I'm going to save that. So this is test mix down. Hopefully this won't take too long. Okay, so there we go. We've got that. Now let's go to the test mixdown WAV, load this in here. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything more on this, except one thing that you might want to do is go to match loudness. We might want to just drag that into there. And I've saved this to go to -12 LUFS. So this is just to keep the audio not too high, just at the right level for podcasting. And -12 LUFS is the exact thing that we want there. Then just save that. We also might want to just go to the metadata bit and put in the title. So confident live test. I'm going to put my name in there. So this information is going to be embedded in the MP3 that we get from this confident live marketing show. I'm not going to go through all of this. You can add your album art, that kind of thing. Let's just save that. Hopefully that all helped. But just if this scares you, I just want to say, don't let it scare you. There are easy ways. And of course, you could just hire somebody to edit the podcast for you. So yeah, so then the next stage is to then upload it. So let's go to my podcasting host, and I'm just going to share that. So hopefully you can see this. This is Captivate FM. So I've already created a show within Captivate. This is the podcasting host, and this host allows me to then create the podcast feed that iTunes, Apple Podcasts, all the other places can get people to subscribe to, if I can get my words out today. So now let's just upload that audio file that I created. Oh yeah, it would help if I clicked on that, not upload. Click on that. Let's go to the desktop. Do you know what I did? I forgot to save it in Audition. I saved it as a WAV. You need to save it as an MP3. Oh my goodness, rookie mistake. How embarrassing. Let's just save it as an MP3. So it's important that you save it as an MP3. Let's go back. How embarrassing. Don't do what I just did. Okay, let's get it as an MP3 now. So there we go. Test Mixdown MP3. Upload that. Okay. And then you can enter your title in here. So I'm not going to do that now, but you enter your title, your subtitle, some show notes, when you want it published to. So say I want it published on Wednesday at 8 a.m. You can do that. The season number, if you're using seasons, episode number as well, whether you're using any explicit language, things like that. And then you can schedule it as well. So that is how you use a podcasting host like Captivate. So yeah, that's, yeah. Quinzone Studios, don't forget to save it as an MP3. Yeah, oh my goodness, how embarrassing. Don't do what I do. But yeah, it's an easy mistake to make. So actually showing you that will hopefully stop you from doing that. MP3 is the way to go. Right, we're almost at an end. So we've uploaded to the host. Then you might want to repurpose it into a blog post. That is embedding it on the website. So one thing that you could do actually, so let's just go back here. If I go and show my episodes, let's have a quick look here. Let's discard those and let's go to podcast episodes. Okay, so what I can do here is I can embed this website. I can embed the player on my website. So for example, if I go to 87 here, and then you'll be able to see I've created a blog post here. So this is Michelle Levitt from Heil Sound on my show. And if I scroll down here, I've got the timestamps there, but I've also got the Captivate podcast player there as well. And then further down, you can also watch the video. So then repurpose it into a blog post like I've done. If you can, put the video in there as well. Cool. So that's that. Podcasting directories. Just a quick bit about this because I'm a big fan of podchaser.com. If you haven't heard of Podchaser, it's like the IMDb of the podcasting world. It's absolutely awesome. So I've got my Confident Live Marketing show. And basically what you can do here is you link your feed with Podchaser, and then you can add guests on your shows as well. So I can view, for example, all the guests that I had on my show. It's not working today for some reason, annoyingly. But yeah, that's a particular episode that I did. But you can add your guests on there, and it's just a great way to get your podcast seen by more people. So podchaser.com works really, really well. And then, of course, promotion side of things. So I'm going to be getting Mark Asquith on the show in a couple of weeks' time to talk about this in more detail. But, using social media management tools to post out, use email, and even use things like Facebook ads and things like that to promote. But we're going to be going into much more detail in a couple of weeks' time about that because we've run out of time. I never metadata. I didn't like, so Quinzone Studios. I think attention to detail is important. But nowadays I have a podcast editor who adds all of the metadata to the MP3s. You don't have to do it, but if somebody was to download it to your computer, it does have all the copyright information in there and all the information about your show. If you care about owning your content, of having ownership of that, I think it's important to put the metadata in, but you don't need to do that. DocRock is being awesome here, and I have to admit, I don't know exactly what LUFS and LKFS means, but loudness units relative to full scale. I was taught how to do this by Mike Russell, who's an amazing guy, and he was on the show last week. So yeah, minus 12 LUFS is just the right kind of level for loudness for your podcasts. And I would totally agree with DocRock on this one. Self-editing makes you understand recording better. You will make less mistakes. Hopefully, that's the theory. And that's exactly how I want to do it. I knew that eventually I was going to delegate it to an editor, but I'm so glad that I knew how to edit it myself and how I need to structure my shows. So if you can learn how to edit yourself, you could use GarageBand, you can keep it really, really simple. But I think that's really, really important. So yeah, definitely do that. And DocRock says, I love Podchaser. Irfan says, I want to go live. Awesome. Well, Ecom Live is where you need to go for that. Well, we're out of time. Thank you so much for watching this live show. I hope that it's been helpful. Do let me know if you have any more questions, any more thoughts. Michael does ask one final question here, just says, roughly on average, how long is your entire workflow from start to finish? It's pretty quick, actually, but it depends on how many bits you want to do yourself. It's a great question. So I would say the extra work with the editing. So it kind of depends on how long your live show is. My live show was about an hour. So there's about 45 minutes to 50 minutes of podcast editing. That used to take me at the start about 2 to 3 hours to edit because I was very slow. But you can speed that up. All the other stuff, once you've got it in place, it's really simple. Using Ecamm, you've got it all there. You don't have to mess around with it. All the bits at the beginning. All of the extra bits, probably only about an extra hour, if that. So once you've got it all in place, it saves you so much time. So that's why I think things like using Calendly and Asana and all these tools make so much difference. And yes, I do think editing your own podcast at the start is good, as Doc Rock was saying. For me, it just came to the point when I was just spending too much time editing my podcast. I had other things to do in my business that were more important. So I delegated that. And obviously that costs money, but I think you have to get to a point where you have to make those kind of decisions. Time is so important. Carlos is saying, muchas gracias. Thank you so much, Carlos. And H. Le Spencer says, great show. I learned a ton. Thank you so much. Melissa says, thank you so much too. And thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Doc Rock, for all of your amazing contributions to this. You're awesome. Thank you so much. Well, that is the end of today's show. I will be here next week at the usual time. We go live every Monday. There are loads of other shows, of course, on the Ecamm network. So do check out all the other shows. You should definitely do that. And basically, until next time, I encourage you to launch your podcast with success through the power of Ecamm Live. See you soon. Bye.
Thanks for watching the Podcaster Hour from Ecamm, helping entrepreneurs, business owners, and live streamers launch a podcast with success using the power of Ecamm Live. That's it for this week, but do tune in next time. See you soon, and toodaloo!